All right, let's edit. This is part 3 in a series that I'm doing on editing Salida, Colorado. So zooming in here, you can see this is a city pretty far southwest of Denver here. And I've mostly been working on adding sidewalks and street crossings to Salida, but when I see other issues, I try to address them too. So each video is kind of an adventure. I try to keep them under an hour long, and if you're looking for some tips and tricks for editing an ID, you might find these videos useful. So as I said, this is part 3. If you want to look at my other videos about the subject, you can find them on this YouTube channel. Cool. So I'm scrolling into the city here, and you can see that a lot of these sidewalks have already been mapped now, which was pretty much all me, to be honest. So these are the red dotted lines that line these streets. Those are all the sidewalks. So last time I was editing, I actually did a section of streets down here in the bottom right. I did some along East Rainbow, and then I went up Palmer Street. So you can see that's all mapped. But I suspect there's a few sidewalks I missed in these sort of north-south facing streets along here, as well as Nichols and Maxwell Street, for example. So let's jump into the editor and see what we can do. All right, so we're going to hit edit. This is going to drop us into the ID editor. I'm going to hit edit now. All right. So as you can see, there's a lot of those crossing markers at those intersections there. So I think I covered those pretty well. I think I'm going to use this as sort of a jumping off point and move sort of east and west along these cross streets, get some of those other crossings installed. And we'll try to fill in the gaps. Alrighty, so first of all, I'm just going to make sure I'm using the right aerial imagery. Yeah, Bing Maps is usually my favorite. They have by far the best coverage, the highest resolution imagery in this area. All right, and the first things first, let's make sure this aerial image offset is pretty tight. So it looks like it's pretty good. I have a decent amount of trust in my offset that I used last time, so we can pretty easily just hop right back into it by aligning this imagery like so. That looks pretty good to me. It's never going to be perfect, but it's good enough for our uses today. All right, so we can already see that there are actually some we're lacking sidewalks in this area here. This might be passable to a pedestrian, but it doesn't really look much like a sidewalk to me, and I don't really feel comfortable marking that as a sidewalk on the map. So this area might actually be easier to map than I thought because, well, there isn't a whole lot to map. You might see on the right side of the screen a few sidewalks over here, so that's probably where we're going to direct our focus in just a minute here. But I kind of want to just go down Palmer Street and get a lay for the land. It looks like this is sort of intended as a pedestrian sort of highway down in this area here. It's interesting to see these concrete sort of strips across these streets. I'm just going to turn on the Bing Street Side overlay just in case there is Bing Street Side imagery in this area. If there were, we would see turquoise dots along these streets, so it doesn't look like there are. Oh, it looks like I missed a unmarked crossing over here, so let's get that put in here. Okay, that's why it's nice to just look over my previous work, see if there's anything missing, get sort of a lay for the land. After like an hour or so of editing, I sometimes forget to add some of the basic stuff, so it's nice to just go back and make sure everything's back together. Okay, so it looks like I did get a pretty good cover on Palmer Street. Oh, I remember deciding to leave that unconnected, and I think that is a good idea because this doesn't really look like it's intended for pedestrian use. Since we have a sidewalk on the other side, I think it's most accurate and most helpful to people who are trying to navigate this area to indicate that there isn't an established sidewalk there. Okay, so over on Hunt Street, we have a similar issue happening on this right side of the street, or I should say the east side of the street. But on the west side, we do have a sidewalk that's pretty well established with tactile paving along it. So let's get that mapped. That's going to be asphalt with tactile paving, and we're going to connect it to Jones Avenue. Now, I often just like to get these sidewalks laid in first before I finish all of the unmarked crossings. That sidewalk had a couple of bends in it, but I'm not really too concerned about that. I think this is good enough for the purposes of trying to get around in Salida. And let's add this second one. So this is a funny spot where that tactile paving has been installed here on this northeast side of this intersection, but clearly that tactile paving isn't really meant to connect anywhere here. I mean, I'm sure pedestrians use this corner, but it's not really intended for them. It looks like there's a lot of trucks coming around through here. It would be funny to put an unmarked crossing across the intersection like this, but I don't think that's really accomplishing anything for us. All right, this is another funny intersection because all of the tactile paving and just the sidewalks in general are facing north-south. And there's clearly very little intention for any pedestrians to be taking a right or a left at any of these intersections. I just think that's kind of funny. But that's how it is sometimes, and that's part of what we're trying to capture here by mapping the sidewalks, right? Is sort of show people through data how these sidewalks are meant to be used to the best of our ability. So as I said, I often like to just get the sidewalks in before I do the crossings because sometimes the geometry of the crossings depends on where the sidewalks end up, if that makes sense. This guy is just off enough. It looks like there is a slight bend. I'm going to put another node in there just to tighten it up a little bit. Looks like it runs right down the center now. As I've said in previous videos, like I can't actually claim to be mapping this perfectly, right, with the imagery offset issues that I've talked about at length. But if I can make things internally consistent, right, where these features are all mapped relative to each other in a correct geometry, that makes them useful to someone. If someone's phone GPS says that they're at this intersection or near this intersection, they can see what's going on. They can see where it would be best for them to go. And if future mappers come in here with higher quality data, it should be fairly easy for them to correct the positions of things without starting from scratch. Because a lot of the time and effort that it takes to map is just putting the features in to begin with, right? So, all right, let's get this unmarked crossing in and this guy. So this is a situation, I've talked about this in previous videos, but sometimes I won't like add sidewalk up to that tactile paving and then do an unmarked crossing across. I just feel like that's kind of a waste of our time, a waste of data. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter. That little section of sidewalk doesn't really serve a purpose. And I just don't think it's necessary here. But if someone were to come in and do sort of this micro mapping effort, micro mapping is the idea of mapping things at a very fine resolution and really think about how to best represent every square inch of the ground, which I think is awesome. And I love doing micro mapping. But this is not really the time and place for that, right? Like we're just trying to get the stuff in. And honestly, I already feel like I'm micro mapping to some extent since I'm putting all of these sidewalks in. Like this is a pretty high level of detail for a somewhat rural town like this. Okay, so let's get these in here. Looking good. Oh yeah. And as I said before, ooh, all right, I was going to run that sidewalk up there, but it looks like we have a bit more of a complex geometry here. So this is a situation where I really wish I had like a nice like street side image to work from, but it looks pretty clear what's happening from the aerial imagery. So we have the sidewalk going around that parking area. I think I'm going to take the opportunity here to map that parking area. So I'm just going to grab the area here. If I were really focused on parking during this edit session, I might think about mapping these accessible spaces with the wheelchair spacing between them. That's something that a lot of people really care about when they're editing OpenStreetMap, and I think it's an awesome initiative. That's something I think I'm going to leave for a later date. Right now, it's nice that we just have the parking lot to begin with, right? And then we have that little footpath there that leads up to this house. I think that's really cool. but I'm actually going to I'm going to hesitate there and not map that. This may not be a house though, because that almost looks like a playground, and I'm wondering if this is a small school, maybe like a kindergarten or Montessori program. That's just a wild guess on my part though. That could be someone's backyard with some weird stuff in it. Anyways, I don't really think I need to worry about that right now. This isn't something I could definitively say what it is from aerial imagery. It would be very difficult to figure out what's going on here. And I mean, if I'm mapping that front walk to a house, there's a lot of other front walks to houses like this one that I could map as well, which, you know, maybe someday I'll come in and do a lot of those, but I kind of need to limit the scope of my edits, or else I'm just going to get nowhere with them. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's adjust the geometry a little bit here. Looks like there is a little bit of a bend to this sidewalk, so let's try to capture that a little bit. That looks pretty nice. I like the look of that, and we'll add a sidewalk there. There's like a phrase, and I think you may have heard this if you've watched previous videos, that you don't want to map for the renderer. What that means is that like when you see map data on a map, like the data that I'm entering right now, if you're going to visualize data, you have to render it, right? Like whatever you're doing with that data to see it, like some amount of logic needs to happen to decide how that data appears on your screen. And so like, for example, the width and color and length of different roads, for example, or the color of a park, or there's symbology as a whole subfield of rendering maps, right? Like these are things that a lot of people think about, like a lot. Like there's people whose jobs it is to improve the rendering of different online maps. And when it comes to OpenStreetMap, there's a lot of different renderers that you can use, right? So if you go to openstreetmap.org, you'll see a renderer, like a rendered map that is referred to as Mapnik. That's just like the name of the style of map that they use. And that one's really cool. I really like that one a lot. But if you're a biker, for example, Mapnik is not a good renderer for you because it's not going to show a lot of the things that a biker might be most interested in as prominently as it would show other elements, things that a pedestrian would be most interested in, for example. So it's important to think about how the data you're inputting might not appear on one map. It might appear on a different map, or a researcher studying land use in the region that you're mapping might be really glad that you mapped that area so diligently in this one particular style. But, you know, the person who's driving through that area might not even notice or might not even see that data that you inputted. So that's one of the like constant concerns and considerations of the OpenStreetMap community, right? It's like, how are we going to manage the standards and the sort of common languages that we use to describe these elements and these data points that we all work so hard to add to the map in a way that makes sense for any number of renderers, right? Like we're trying to be agnostic to who's using this data. Okay, so in this situation, I've decided to adjust this a little bit. It really doesn't matter too much how this is mapped, but I think it's cleaner to have the sidewalks cross each other and then have the unmarked crossings start at the tactile paving. This is an example of that micro mapping concept that I was mentioning earlier. I think this is a good time to care about that and to spend a little bit of time making that happen. So I'm going to disconnect all of these nodes and put them at the tactile pavings, and then we're going to connect those sidewalks over each other. And they're going to warn me, this sidewalk crosses the other sidewalk and we haven't tagged them as crossing. There's no node at that intersection. So I'm going to hit the connect the features button, and that's going to connect those together. That looks pretty nice. Let's do it on the other side as well. All right. This is really one of the situations where I feel like the ID editor, the specific editor that I'm using, really shines. Oops, I did the wrong thing there. I want to disconnect those. Because ID really makes the interface easy for connecting these types of things in a very straightforward way. And that I really appreciate that. Okay, I am going to manually connect those sidewalks to get a little bit of a curvature there. I like the look of that. And another trick is when you select a line like this, and I mean, it doesn't really matter that it's bent, but there's no real reason why it's bent, right? Like, it doesn't matter. You're just going to go straight from one side to the other. So if you hit the S button in the ID editor, it'll straighten it up for you. It doesn't really have much visual of a difference at this point, but that's okay. You'll just have to believe me. So as you can see in this area, the aerial image offset that I used to map these sidewalks previously is slightly different. I'm actually going to leave those. I think it's fine. It's slightly different than the one I'm using now, but I don't think they are far enough different that I need to worry about it. I'm just going to let that sleeping dog lie. Although, yeah, I'm just going to straighten that up a little bit because I feel like that's closer to the center line, like the orientation of that sidewalk. Okay, let's hit S, 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 just straighten those up a little bit. That looks nice. Yeah, so this is a situation where, like, you know, I don't want to be too mean, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to, you know, express too much judgment for whoever designed or developed this area, but like it's clear that they're not prioritizing the pedestrians here, right? Like, there's two crossings to this like island, this like triangular grassy area that don't really connect to each other. Like, the pedestrians are expected to either just walk across this grass or maybe go somewhere else. It looks like there's maybe some sort of building here, so I don't really know what's going on, but I'm not comfortable connecting those. Like, that's not really what's going on here. It looks like it would be much safer and more expected for a pedestrian to cross here and then cross over to the west side and then continue up north or wherever they're going to go. Over here, I think I'm being a little pedantic by not connecting these, but it really does look like there's a barrier here. Maybe if I were there in person, it would be very clear that those are connected, but at this point, from my aerial perspective, I can't really see what's going on here. This is a situation where I actually chose to make a note. So if I turn on the notes layer, you'll see that I posted a note, I guess over a week ago now, asking a local or someone who's, you know, maybe driving by in the area to see what's going on here. But I've decided to leave that one. Okay, I feel like we've already sort of visited this area in my previous videos, so let's get out of here. Let's go somewhere else. All right. Yeah, so mapping up that street was a good idea. Oh, looks like I missed a crossing. I do that so often. That's all right. Looking good. Unmarked crossing. And, you know, let's just make sure all of these have tactile paving equals yes. And, you know, I'm going to just go ahead and take a second and do that at a lot of these intersections that I just mapped, because I always forget to, and that is really a useful piece of data that we just happen to have because the aerial imagery is so clear. And those are asphalt. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, I missed another crossing. This is why it's nice to just quickly go back through and check my work a little bit, see if there's anything that I skipped over in haste. Connect the features. I'm just holding down Shift and clicking on these different lines to select all of them. Tag those as asphalt. Why not? And tactile paving. I ride my bike with a group of bikers here in Richmond, and we use this app called Ride with GPS, something like that, Route with GPS. And basically, it's a way that we can like plan our bike rides together. Did I already marked those. And sort of like see what the plan is or see what our previous rides were. Anyways, the app will tell you what the surface is along the entire route. And I don't know if they're getting that from OpenStreetMap. I think they might be. But regardless, it's really interesting to see. And like a cool reason to take the time to map surface data, because like there are apps out there that use that data and will tell a biker, for example, like, oh, 80% of your ride is going to be on asphalt and then 20% of it is going to be on gravel or whatever. But it's not the biggest concern, so I'll often skip over it, especially in my initial mapping, just because like it doesn't really matter that much, and it's not like the highest priority for me when I'm trying to knock out like a ton of mapping all at once. Okay, so we got that done. Looks like, what is that? Palmer Street and Hunt Street are mapped out pretty nicely. So this is the middle and high school here. And most of the footways and sidewalks that you see on the screen right now are all mapped by yours truly. Which I think was a pretty good preliminary step. I will add this basketball court really quick, because that's pretty obviously a basketball court. You can map like playground structures and elements if you want to. There's a lot of fun tags related to like parks and stuff, which I think would be really fun to do in an area like this, but I don't know the area super well, and it just doesn't really feel like too important of something, of a task right now. But that might be a fun thing to come back to in the future, maybe after visiting the site in person or something like that. So as you saw, to map that basketball court, I just used the add area button here. The shortcut was 3. And then you search for basketball court. And the tags there are just leisure equals pitch and sport equals basketball. So that's cool. Yeah, I feel pretty good about the level of mapping that I've done at these schools. The only other thing that I would prioritize here is adding like the physical entrances to the building. But I could guess where they are, right? Like there's probably one right here, and there's probably one right here and right here, but I don't know. I feel like that's the type of thing that's most just easiest, and I can be most confident if I visit the place in person. And, this is sort of a game of deciding what's most important to me right now. Like, what types of data are we just trying to get on the map to make this area feel more easy to navigate by someone? Which, if you've gotten to the building, you're probably fine. The only thing that I would really want to map when it comes to entrances and like footways around a building like that are accessibility. So like, where are the wheelchair ramps? What building entrances have like a smooth entrance? Like there's no bump. Like if you have a 2 or 3 inch bump, all of a sudden it's really hard for a wheelchair to get across there, or harder. Many people in wheelchairs can do that type of thing, but it's not ideal. So anyways, that would be the type of thing I'd want to survey in person. But from my perspective right now, from, however many meters up in the air that I am, probably a few thousand, who knows, like there's just no way I can see like where the accessible entrances are here, at least confidently, right? I mean, I might be able to make out a ramp or two, or, maybe they're all wheelchair accessible, but it's just not something I feel comfortable doing with any like confidence. Okay. So this is sort of funny. Like, imagining that I'm walking from this school, right? And I live like, a half mile to the west. Like, okay, there's no sidewalks here. There's a little parking lot. Maybe I'll add that real quick. Shout out to my friend Traveling Car, by the way, for putting in all of these buildings. Super cool. They look really good. Yeah, I guess I'll do this one too. Kind of like that. I don't know. There's no point in trying to be perfect here since I only have what I have. I can only do as well as I can. But that looks fine. I like that. This is a sidewalk, I feel, and I feel like that's worth putting in real quick. Sidewalk. Disconnected. Yeah, I know. It is disconnected from other roads and ways. Isn't that funny? I agree. Ooh, we're kind of in the shadow here. It's really hard to see how far this sidewalk goes. I'm going to kind of just guess that it goes most of the parking lot. I think that's fine. Why did I tag that as a sidewalk rather than just a footway? I don't know. I thought that it was more appropriate. Okay. I'm going to ignore some of the other parking lots around here for now because that's not really what I'm here to do. Oh yeah, I forgot about that sidewalk that just kind of ends after a while. Let me put that like there. Okay. I really wish I had street side view here. I'm going to turn on the other potential overlays. Yeah, there's nothing. Okie doke. Yeah, this is an area where you can see the aerial image offset that I was using for previous mapping is a little off from what I'm using right now. I do have a bit of a higher confidence in what I'm using currently, so you might see me snap a few things to my current perspective, but I'm going to try not to get obsessed with that because there's no point. It doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah, like that's not a sidewalk. I mean, it's clear that a lot of people have been walking there, or at least some people. But I just don't think that's worth mapping. Like that's not an established trail. I mean, this is a easy example because there is a sidewalk on the other side of the street, so it doesn't matter, right? Like you can just cross the street and walk down there. But as you saw from the aerial imagery, many of these streets don't have a sidewalk on either side. And deciding how to navigate that area as a pedestrian would be kind of interesting. Yeah. Shout out to this person for like just deciding to put this footpath in their front yard. I wonder if many people use that to get to this street or not. It's kind of interesting. Okay. Well, looks like we got sidewalks as far as the eye can see down the street. So this is F Street, and I do have most of these sidewalks mapped already, so that's nice. Yeah, cool. Okay. So one sort of consideration that I might think about more moving forward is so my aerial image offset that I used previously to put these sidewalks and footways in, or crossings, was mostly based on where the streets were, right? Like I was trying to center those streets as well as possible, and then I would map based on that. But the street data, especially in these rural areas, is usually just imported from a data set called Tiger, and it's usually not very good. Like it's fine, but it's not super accurate. It's not really intended to be like accurate down to the sub-meter level, for example. So I've sometimes just gotten bold and started moving the streets around, which it's kind of fun, but it's also like it's kind of this endless game that you can play. You know what I mean? Okay. So these, this sidewalk is all of a sudden aligned again. So you can see I mapped this with a different aerial image offset than I did just the ones a little east of here. So eventually the ones east of here, I might correct if everything else looks pretty good and pretty on point. I am going to go ahead and correct this guy. When I say correct, I don't know if I'm actually making it better, but hopefully I'm not making it worse. Let's go like this. Okay, okay. I promise not to get too distracted by that. Let's just add more sidewalks rather than worry about the ones that are already in. Okay. This guy can continue down, can't he? That looks like further sidewalk. Yeah. I'm happy with that. That looks like sidewalk to me. This, there's like cars parked on it. It's not ideal, but like it kind of looks like sidewalk to me. I'm going to disagree with previous Jacob and say, yes, that is a sidewalk. It's not a great sidewalk, but it sure looks like one. On the other side here, there's clearly no sidewalk over here. This looks like a pedestrian could navigate it. So I'm going to add a sidewalk. You know what? I'm going to connect it to here. So let's go up to this corner. Bring it down to the alley. Yes, you are a sidewalk. Okay, we lost the sidewalk. I'll put it right here. How about that? Ah, it's better than nothing. Oops. What are we doing? Go back. Line. Over here. Thank you. Unmarked crossing. Yes. This is very clearly an unmarked crossing. Good work. Looks like there's tactile paving on one side, which doesn't count. But this guy has tactile paving on both sides, so that's good. All right. I'm not going to make that a sidewalk right now. Too ambiguous, in my opinion. Yeah, like, what's going on here? I don't know. I don't know, man. This looks very passable by a pedestrian. I think I'm going to do a separate sidewalk way that goes around here because it really does look like someone could come through here. But we're not going to tag it as concrete. And I might go to the effort of tagging the other parts of these sidewalks concrete just so that the difference is clear to the next mapper. So sidewalk, surface, I don't know, probably gravel, but I'm not going to, I'll abstain from saying. And then you're going to come all the way up here. Yes, sidewalk, surface, concrete. Okay, that looks good. I'm okay with that. And then, yeah, whatever's going on over here, I'm just really not sure. Like, that looks very passable by a pedestrian. It seems that maybe many pedestrians do walk here. But then there's a very similar looking area to the southeast of H Street here. That's just like there's a truck parked on it. You know, like I'm not loving the pedestrian friendly vibes here. And you know what? North of West 11th Street, there's probably cars parked along here a lot of the day too. So I don't know. It's a rough situation for these pedestrians in Salida, Colorado. What can I say? Yeah. No, I'm not going to map that as a sidewalk. Sorry, guys. Not feeling it. But let's bring it down here. Let's get this guy. This looks legit. At least for a short ways. Yeah, I know you're very close. Well, okay, I'll connect you to the alley. But, yeah, as we continue over here, you can see there's just not a whole lot of sidewalk infrastructure at this point. Yeah. Okay, well, this is making my job easy, I guess. That kind of looks like a sidewalk. I think it counts. Let's put it in. You are a sidewalk, my friend. That could be a drain, like a gutter. In fact, the more I look at it, the less confident I am about that, because it does look like a lot of areas like this, like these sort of arid places that do sometimes get rain. I feel like I've seen like these sort of flat concrete little like slopes that they'll often put on the side of roads. I don't know if that's what this is, but it kind of looks like it, you know? That looks like it's intended for pedestrian use, at least all the way up until it's covered in gravel. Weird. Okay, here we are at Longfellow Elementary School, and now we have some definitive sidewalks. Excellent. Well, when I say definitive, that doesn't look like a definitive sidewalk to me. Oh, maybe it is for a little ways. It's like when I zoomed, I got different imagery. Okay. Fun. Let's put you in, my friend. I'm going to bend it a little bit like that. That looks okay to me. I'll put a node here because I expect to connect to that footway. I like to put the very obvious footways into schools like this because it brings a little bit of character to them. Okay, we're going to connect you guys like that. Love me a good sidewalk that's well defined, concrete, protected from the road. This is everything I look for in a sidewalk and more. Okay, we're going to put a node there. We're going to put a node there. Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes I don't like it when I make the sidewalk bend outwards so that it connects to a marked crossing like that. In this situation, I think it's fine because it's not really like egregious. But sometimes I will go to some effort to avoid a situation like that because I don't like how it looks. And I don't think it's true to what's actually happening on the ground anyways. Okay. Get some good rounded corners there. Coming down around the side of this parking lot. Oh, I'm totally going to tag that parking lot. No one's going to stop me. Okay. I'm just going to let that sit for a second and adjust this little green space here because even with my questionable aerial offset, I think we can see that that grass wasn't very good to begin with. Like, I'm certainly not making it any worse, you know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to do with that residential area, but we'll just leave that there for now. This is, okay, recreation ground. That's broad, but okay. I'm going to make the recreation ground fit within this grassy area because that's what feels right to me. There's no need to connect those. The edge of the residential area is really not related directly to the edge of this recreation ground. That's just not true. You know what I mean? That parking lot is definitely not in the residential area, but I'm going to pick my battles today. Okay. What are you tagged as? A playground? Okay. So this is a situation where the edge of this recreation ground really is the edge of the playground, right? Like there's just a fence between those. So let's make it happen. Let's actually put those edges together. Doesn't that make sense? I think it does. I haven't done very much relation mapping in these videos. Maybe that'll be a topic of an upcoming video. Okay. So I kind of cut across that sidewalk, and that's just kind of, I guess I'd call it an artistic decision, although that's maybe a silly way of describing it. But I feel like the recreation ground does include the end of this sidewalk here, right? Like that little circle, I think we could agree, is in the recreation ground. But like as it becomes this like sidewalk thing, it feels like it's really in the playground at that point. So anyways, that's my reasoning. Let's just bring that in a little bit. That looks nice. I like that. Oh, I never tagged that as a sidewalk. Silly me. And then let's put this area in. Wah, bang. Looking good. Yes, I'm going to pull that out just a little bit. Yeah, parking lot. Nice. Okay, where were we? I was making the sidewalk when I got distracted by how bad that recreation ground looked. Okay. So this is a situation where I am going to move my prior edits so that things look a little bit nicer. I'm questioning my previous decision making here. I think that looks okay. I'm willing to live with that. I think these sidewalks should eventually get moved, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm already at 133 changes today. Wowee. Unmarked crossing. You know what? I'm feeling good. Let's add this driveway. This is like part driveway, part like parking aisle because it's used to access that parking lot. So I'm going to call it a service road. That's kind of a catch-all term in OpenStreetMap for stuff like this. Let's throw in some sidewalk here. Looking good. I'm going to mark this as an unmarked crossing since it didn't automatically do that because I added the crossing node after I added the unmarked crossing way. This I'm going to make an unmarked crossing as well. And I'm going to connect the features. Oh, and it did snap to the node. Okay. I'm cool with that. That feels fine with me. It's sometimes a like sort of pet peeve of mine that like clearly different purposed built roads like I Street and the service road get connected in the same intersection. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess people coming down I Street are going to just go straight down into here. But anyways, in this situation, I don't think it's too bad because they really are like a straight shot into each other. But sometimes they're offset by like a significant distance, in which case I will disconnect those nodes and place them onto the cross street, like West 7th, in different places because they're not the same street sometimes. So anyways, that's just something to consider if you're mapping in an area like this one. Let's get these crossings in. Maybe one day this map will assist an elementary school student in their walk to school. That'd be really fun. Okay. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, as I said earlier, like it's hard for me to see things sometimes from an aerial point of view like this, but it does seem pretty obvious that this marked crossing just kind of goes over like a piece of dirt or something here. We don't love that. Okay. Wait, no, that's a marked crossing. Have I been tagging these as unmarked crossing? You can't take me anywhere. Okay, let's fix those really quick. Whoops. Okay, that's an unmarked crossing, but those are all marked crossings. So let's tag them as such. And then this guy goes kind of like this, and I'm going to go like that because that's how I want to do it. And this guy is a marked crosswalk. Cool. And there's tactile paving. Haha. Oh, no, that I'm not going to tag that as, yeah, I'm only going to tag those as having tactile paving. Nice. Okay. That's enough detail for now. Let's see about this guy. Yeah, those are like really off, aren't they? I'm going to go ahead and adjust those because that's how I'm feeling right now. Whoo-wee. So good. So good. Yeah, a little silly, but I actually really like that. And the reason why is because for the most part, I feel like from whichever direction you're traveling, if you saw on a map, like the path that you're going to travel, it wouldn't really be too confusing to see this intersection, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to leave it. Man, it'd be pretty goofy if I'm like making this worse rather than better, and it's really my aerial offset that's off. I don't really think so though. Okay, let's do a couple of basic fixes to this elementary school while we're here. Just going to move that sidewalk in a little bit, or playground, excuse me. That doesn't really look like it's in the playground. I'm going to guess that the edge of this playground is actually this yellow area with the play structures on it. Because past that, it kind of just looks like concrete. I feel like that's where your classmates are walking to school. So let's fix that up a little bit. I wonder who put this in, like what version this is. Might go and look it up just for out of curiosity. Okay. Yeah, I realize that's not perfect, but I don't really care. I think it's fine. Perfect is the enemy of good, as my professor once, or actually not once, many times used to say. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to like smooth these lines too much because I'm just kind of putting something in there. This is version 1 of hopefully more than one, you know what I mean? Let's just kind of get something in there. And I'll tag that as a footway in just a moment here. Yeah. Path. This actually seems like a fun place to be. If I was in elementary school right now, I'd be like super excited about this playground. Actually, who am I kidding? I'm still super excited about this playground. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Footpath. Highway equals footway. Okay. That's funny. That's really cute, actually. I really think that's a fun path. I would add that, but I would want to tag it correctly, and the navigation around here is already just fine for someone like trying to get to the school. So I'm going to leave it for now. But I'm going to take a note that if I'm ever in Salida and I want to get some more mapping done, doing the schools would be a rewarding thing to do. Okay. Footpath. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm going to drag that node in like this. And then I'm going to put another footpath like here. Wabang. Get that tightened up just a little bit. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay. This looks like a service road. This looks like where someone would make a delivery or something to the school. So I'm going to add that as well. Okay, and then it's going to say service road crosses sidewalk. I'll make an intersection there. Okay. Feeling better about that. Ooh, sidewalk just randomly starts over here. Excellent. They must have built a few of these houses before they realized that, oh, putting a sidewalk into this area would be really nice. It's hard to spot, but it really looks like that sidewalk makes a little bend right there. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. My goodness. Sidewalk. All right. Put a sidewalk over here. I'll connect those in a second. Oh, and this is good because this is crossing the Monarch Spur Trail, which is a mixed use trail. It's really nice. That stretches out of Salida a little ways. Eventually connects down to Rainbow Boulevard, aka US Highway 50. Okay, at this point, I'm starting to feel like my aerial imagery offset. Well, oh wow, look at this. This is wrong. So this is a situation where, like, you always have to ask yourself when you see the map data disagree so much with the aerial image like this, how and why it might be wrong or right. And I'll explain what I mean there. So, like, if you see the difference and you think to yourself, okay, like, this aerial image is actually pretty old. A lot of this aerial imagery that we use is like from 2008 or 2010. Like, the image that I'm using as a reference could be wrong and the actual data could be right. So, like, someone could have come in and added this little spur here and this little bit because like, things changed in real life and the aerial image hasn't yet updated to reflect that. However, I don't think that's the case, and I'll explain why. This adjustment, because, you know, let's for one trust that the roads actually did once used to look like this, right? This isn't just some sort of error that somehow got into OpenStreetMap. This adjustment, where they added this larger jut of sidewalk with a nice tactile paving and this, like, fun little curve, this looks like a development project that was done later, right? Like, it would surprise me if they do something like this and then pull it out. So that is a hint to me that I think this is actually a newer image than the data on top of it. I don't know for sure, but I think this Bing imagery is from around 2021. But just for fun, let's find out. If I go to Bing, let's make this an aerial image. Thank you. Let's scroll in. Okay, so we're looking at this. This is the same image. Also, that white line is kind of funny. I noticed that earlier, but I didn't really, like, think to say anything about it. But I wonder if that's like a real feature, like a power line, or that might just be like some sort of weird side effect of how Bing stitched these images together. Anyways, Bing should tell us when this imagery was taken, although at the moment I can't really tell. It says copyright 2023, but that's just the copyright. Feedback help. Are we not gonna know when this image was taken? Google Maps always tells you, but you can't use Google Maps to edit with OpenStreetMap, so we won't even do that for a minute. Okay. Let's go on a little adventure together, shall we? Let's search this up. Find date of Bing Maps aerial imagery. Let's see if we can find something. All right, how to determine the date. This is from 2012, so this might be a little outdated. There's a Bing imagery analyzer for OSM. That's probably going to be a part of the JOSM editor. I could be wrong. Oh, it's by Martijn. Martijn's a really cool guy. Does a lot of editing for OpenStreetMap. Oh, this actually looks like it's a web. This is interesting. I've never seen this before, but this is like a, okay, so this is hosted on openstreetmap.org. Martijn has his own subdomain, which is sick. I had no idea you could do that. Let's see if I can find Salida in this view. Cool. You can search. Thanks, Martijn. This is sick. Okay, here I am. I'm looking at the exact image. Now, when was it taken? A very furry thing, it says in the bottom right. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's like Martijn's like watermark or something. Report an error. Okay. All right. I don't really know how to use this. Let's go back and see if we can find any information. Oh, it was a site showing Bing satellite and their capture date. As of September 2018, this website is no longer working. Oh, maybe I should have read a little bit more. Okay, so you can view the imagery, but I guess the logic that decides how old the imagery is not up to date anymore. Okay, that's a dead end, but I'm still thinking about how we could do this. Show Bing imagery and the display date. Okay. At this point, I just want to say to you, the viewer, we are taking a risk here because it's not okay to use data that is licensed in a closed or private way on OpenStreetMap. So we need to make sure that if we're looking at data, we're still looking at Bing data because Microsoft has said that Bing data is okay to use when you're mapping. Oh my. Okay. What is this? Looks like we have a lot of overlays happening right now. Let's see if I can disable these overlays. Oh no, that just made it more overlaid. Okay. This is like some sort of weather situation. I don't know what we've gotten ourselves into here. But this is also not going to help us. So it looks like that's also a dead end. Okay. Well, maybe this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. So that's okay. I'm going to use my intuition here. Oh, one more tool in our back pocket. Let's use this since we've been having trouble finding something that works well for this situation. I'm going just to the normal OpenStreetMap view. This is the Mapnik view that I was talking about earlier. We have this little feature over on the right side called Query Features. If you click on that, you'll get this question mark cursor. And if you click on an area, you can then see any elements that your cursor was on when you clicked. So we got Crestone Avenue, Poncha Boulevard. Let's take a look at this section of Poncha Boulevard. Aha. So this was last edited almost 6 years ago. And the edit doesn't even look like it. I mean, it may have, but based on the description, it doesn't really look like we moved any roads anyways. And if I look at Crestone, I bet you it's going to be the same exact thing. 3 years ago. Okay, what was the history? Okay, so someone did move this road 3 years ago. So that is interesting. I'm still convinced, though, based on the last edit of Poncha Boulevard, that this is an older version and it's not yet it's not representing, yes. So this section here, 6 years old, that's feeling out of date to me. This development, I have a strong feeling is newer than 6 years ago. And most of the Bing imagery that I use for mapping, because I have checked the age of the Bing imagery in other areas where that data is available, has always been newer than 6 years old. Most of it's from 2020, 2021, not very much from 2022 yet, but maybe that'll come later this year. I don't know how often they update it, but regardless, I think it is safe for us to start moving this. So let's do it. I'm going to come over here and start adding a little bit of detail to this road here. Like if we're gonna edit it, right? Like let's do a good job. This guy clearly we're gonna have to change. Okay. Interesting. So eventually, so once I get this edit done, I am going to have to ask I'm going to have to add a note and ask how these roads are assigned right now, right? So like this is West 3rd Street. This is labeled as West 3rd Street. This is labeled as Poncha Boulevard. It's hard to tell what's what in this situation. And honestly, this is kind of just looking like a driveway right now. Like this is not really looking like a tertiary road, which is what it's tagged as right now. So I'm going to move that intersection up. But since this road is a road that provides access to multiple houses and it's in a residential area, but it doesn't appear to serve much other purpose. Like if you were trying to just, if you were a through driver, right? If you're driving through this area, I do not see a reason why you would drive on this section of road. So I'm going to relabel this as a residential road. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to click on this and we're going to change it to be a residential road. Oops. Okay, so since this was connected to this, I forgot to disconnect the two. We accidentally made a larger change than we intended, so I'm just going to hit Control-Z to go back. We're going to select that node and disconnect. And now, just with this selection, this part, oops, we also need to hit X, excuse me. There it goes. No. Okay, are these a part of a relation? No. If I click on this, aha, there's the split button. For some reason that was being stubborn, but now we got it. Now I'm going to change this to be a residential road. So that sort of de-emphasizes the road on the renderer, but it also, the data is better reflecting what's actually going on, at least as far as I can tell based on the updated imagery. So now we're going to put these nodes along the center line as best as we can to sort of represent the new shape of 3rd Street. I'm also going to wager that this is now all West 3rd Street, and I'm going to combine these ways so that they're all the same. That's a little bit of a gamble on my part because I don't actually know if that's the name of this, but since it's a T intersection with a named street like this, Poncha Boulevard, I think that's a fair assumption. Really where it gets sticky here is this Poncha Boulevard or is this West 3rd Street? Because we do have that T intersection, but it looks like West 3rd Street is the name of this street down further south east here. So I mean, if I were designing this intersection, I would probably name this section West 3rd Street as well so that we have some continuity of West 3rd Street. But I don't know, so I'm going to add a note right here and say, it looks like this intersection has been constructed. What's a good word here? Redone, I'm just going to say, in the last few years. Can someone check the naming of these streets? in this area. Cool. So I added a note so that people know if they're mapping in this area that that might not be correct, and that hopefully if someone is here in person at some point, they can take a look and see if they can determine what the real names of those streets are. And that's the type of edit on OpenStreetMap that really has a large impact, right? Like a lot of the applications that are used by like a surprising number of people, like millions of people every day, like on Facebook, Mapbox does a lot of like in-car navigation apps and stuff like that. Those are all OpenStreetMap apps, and they will often navigate based on the names of streets and such. So it's the type of edit that really does make a big impact on how effective OpenStreetMap is. So it's a higher priority, and hopefully someone can take a look at that. There are a couple of us on OpenStreetMap, myself included, who visit Salida on a fairly regular basis. So we'll have to coordinate between us who can come in and take a look at some of these notes and hopefully find some answers. Get to the bottom of this. All right. Just kind of expanding this grass out. Like, who knows if it's in the right position, but hopefully it'll be the right shape. Haha. Okay. Can't really see what's going on here, so you are not like that. As I said before, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. Excuse me. My gosh, I keep burping. Must be this beer. It's pretty good beer. It's a Vienna lager called Watching Grass Grow. It's kind of funny. Okay, you know, I'm mapping the shape of this grassy area. Let's get it right, shall we? Ooh, that white line is throwing me. I don't know what to do about that. I'm going to delete that node and let someone else deal with this because I can't tell. Well, someone clearly mapped down here before. I think that white line must be an artifact of something else. I do not think, I mean, maybe it's a fence. No, it can't be a fence because it goes straight through that street. It doesn't really look like something that's actually on the ground. I'm not going to worry about it. I haven't seen something like that before. I wonder if it's a image distortion issue, like how they stitch these images together in some way, or maybe it's a power line, but I just don't think that's how it actually looks in real life. And if it is, the next person can come in and correct it. Okay. And we are going to map the heck out of these. Oops. I just deleted this. Let's try that again. We're going to map the heck out of these crossings and sidewalks. You are a marked crossing. And you are a marked crossing. So this is a situation where I would put a like footway or something from the marked crossing to the sidewalk just because it's a pretty long distance and it just doesn't really feel right to send the crossing that far. I don't think it's wrong because like arguably the only purpose of this stretch is to cross. So you could probably claim that this is a part of the marked crossing, and I totally could see that, but I guess it just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to go with what feels right. Okay, let's get some of these ways going up here. I don't think I'm going to do too much more mapping today. We've already made 183 edits, and usually when I edit like this, there's a bunch of like outstanding warnings and errors with the things that I've edited, so I just have to go back and like review all of the things that it asks me to review. You know what? Maybe I'll do that pretty soon here and do that on camera so that you, the viewer, can enjoy the process with me. Okay, let's get this guy over here. That's feeling fine. Yeah, looks great. Okay, so much to do. we won't be able to do it all today, and that is okay. I'm glad we got that that intersection situation improved, because clearly that was an urgent need in this area when it comes to OpenStreetMap. But getting these sidewalks in will also just make the place feel really nice. And it might actually be fun to come in and do some more of these grassy areas, add some more grass areas to OpenStreetMap. I know it's not like the most important thing ever, but it really helps the map come to life. Like when you look at an area on a map that renders grass, like it looks so much nicer and like so much more inviting as an area if you can see like parkland and grassy areas, medians, stuff like that. I think it's worthwhile, especially in a place that I might visit and I might be looking at the map for a lot. Sidewalk is very close but not connected to alley. Okay, I decided to put an unmarked crossing here. Okay, connect the features. It'll be so interesting to hopefully visit this area with a GPS at some point and figure out how wrong or right I was. Like, how accurate was I in the aerial image offset debate? I'm going to find that fun. Okay. Yeah, see, that's a situation where it's just kind of a sloppy corner. So we're just going to add an extra node to sort of smooth that out a little bit. It already looks so much nicer. And we'll put an unmarked crossing over here. I always feel guilty when I leave areas like this unmapped when I clearly could, but I just can't map everything today. You just can't. So I think I'm going to leave that how it is right now. And let's work through some of these errors. Or maybe there's none. No, there's errors. All right. Line has no tags. Looks like I forgot to tag this. Oh, yes. This is a sidewalk. Ba-bang. Perfect. Okay. Looks good. Alley crosses sidewalk. Yeah, so every time a sidewalk crosses a street or an alley or something, you need to at least connect the features with a node. The default is just highway equals crossing. I'm fine with that default when it's a very small sort of, it's not a very high impact intersection right here. Like, I think that's all we need. But in some situations, like just a couple minutes ago, I'll take the time to map out like a more specific crossing, like an unmarked crossing or something, just to make that feel a little bit more legitimate. A map might warn a pedestrian about an upcoming crossing in that way. So it adds maybe an element of safety. Okay, so connect the features. This is where a sidewalk is crossing a sidewalk. So right here we have two sidewalks overlapping each other. And right now they are not tagged as actually intersecting. Like the map doesn't know whether or not they actually are touching each other. In this situation, it's pretty clear that they are. So that's an easy one. Sidewalk is disconnected from other roads and paths. Yeah, it is. This is actually a situation where I'm okay with this error. I know that might be a somewhat controversial opinion, and clearly a lot of the time people are going to want to address this issue, but this is a situation where those sidewalks seem to predominantly serve these parking lots. And besides that, there are some marked crossings over here that might deserve to be mapped in the future. But, excuse me, keep burping. I don't feel comfortable connecting those. I don't really feel like that's a walkway, nor do I know if this business or house or whatever it is permits that. So there's just too many question marks here, and I'm not willing to do that. So I'm going to hit ignore this issue. I'm going to ignore that too. Okay, sidewalk crosses sidewalk. This is probably the exact same situation as before, so that's easy. We'll just connect the features. Sidewalk is disconnected from other nodes and paths. Yes, I did that intentionally. It does not look like the sidewalk continues on either side. I guess these houses really just like to walk between each other. So I'm going to ignore that issue. Footpath is disconnected. So that's wrong. It is connected. Sometimes if I just wiggle these, the warning goes away. It's just a bug with ID editor. Okay. Sidewalk is disconnected from other roads and paths. Yes. Yes, it is. That's intentional. It does look like there's some sidewalk right here that maybe ends really soon. I don't know. I can't really get a read from that from aerial. I'm not really worried about it. It's probably okay to connect these two, but I just don't know. I don't know. And I'd rather leave data unadded, or like, there's a better way of saying this. I'd rather not add data I'm not sure about rather than adding data that may not be there, right? Like it's better to err on the side of, well, I know that this exists rather than, I'm not sure if this exists. So I'm going to leave that. Okay. I didn't actually use Mapple Area or Cartaview. I think I did open StreetSide once, so I'll leave that in my list of sources. And I'm just going to do a sort of broad sidewalks, crossings around Salida. And then I'm going to say, where was that? Poncha Boulevard. Improve intersection of Poncha Boulevard and West 3rd Street. Okay, and now if I hit upload, that is going to submit my changes to OpenStreetMap, and I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for watching. If you made it all this way, I am a little scared for you. I hope you have a good night. Take care.